We all deal with relationships every day, don't we? This whole complex network of connections.
Absolutely. From family to, person you barely nod to at the coffee shop.
Right. And it got me thinking about how we talk about them in English. It's actually pretty complex.
It really is.
So for this deep dive, we're going to unpack that language. Really look at the words and phrases we use.
Yeah, and we've got some great source material for this. It's essentially a language lesson focused on relationship vocabulary, the phrases, examples, even pronunciation tips, though we'll focus on the words themselves.
Okay. So the idea is to give you, the listener, a kind of shortcut to understanding how English speakers discuss all these different connections.
Exactly, covering the different types, useful words, maybe even some cultural bits. It's like an insider's guide.
All right, so where does our source material start? It kicks things off by mapping out the main categories, right?
Yeah, the big ones. Romantic relationships, obviously.
Partners, spouses, dating, all that.
The family, parents, siblings, cousins, the whole network.
And friendships, which can be so varied.
Totally, from casual buddies to, lifelong best friends.
Then there are professional relationships, colleagues, bosses, clients.
And finally, acquaintances. Those people you know of, but aren't really close to.
It's quite a range when you list them out like that.
It is. And what's interesting is how the examples in the source material show the nuances. Like, I have a really close relationship with my sister.
That word close does a lot of heavy lifting there.
It really does. It signals depth, not just biology. Or we've been best friends since school.
Yeah, that tells you about shared history, endurance.
Right. And then the flip side, he's more of an acquaintance than a friend. It just clearly draws a line.
It's like a quick code for how much connection there is. Okay, so after the types, the lesson digs into specific vocabulary, starting with romance.
Yep. So you get phrases like, be in a relationship. Pretty straightforward, states your status.
Right, or go out with, which sounds a bit more like the early stages, dating.
Exactly. And get along with. That's key, isn't it? It points to compatibility, harmony.
Definitely. It's not just about being together, but how well it works.
And that links to things like have a strong connection or the classic, we just clicked.
Ah, clicked. That captures that instant chemistry feeling.
It does. Then you have the big milestones. Fall in love.
And the less happy ones, break up or split up.
The examples given really show this arc. She's in a relationship right now. Simple prep.
They've been going out for a year. Shows duration.
We get along really well.
Yeah.
Focuses on the quality.
We just clicked, that initial spark.
They fell in love during university, a specific time, and then they broke up last month, a finish action.
It really does sketch out a whole potential story. So what about friendships? What phrases come up there?
Well, there's get on well with, which feels similar to get along with, maybe a bit broader.
Yeah, perhaps. Like you could get on well with your colleagues, even if you're not close friends.
Right. Then there's lose touch with. That one's a bit sad, but common.
Oh, absolutely. Life happens, people drift apart. I think most of us can relate to that one, unfortunately.
We can, but then you get the really positive, strong friendship terms, like be there for someone.
That's huge. Reliability, support in tough times.
Exactly. And have each other's backs.
Love that one. It's about loyalty, defense, knowing someone's on your side.
It really sums up a core part of deep friendship.
Okay, moving to family. The source uses some quite descriptive terms here. Close-knit family.
Yeah, that paints a picture immediately, doesn't it? Lots of interactions, support, emotional connection.
It does. And family bond. That feels like that inherent connection, maybe even obligation sometimes.
That fundamental link. But it's not always smooth sailing, so it also mentions sibling rivalry.
Ah, yes. The classic competition between brothers and sisters. That can last a lifetime for some.
Definitely. Again, these terms are like shorthand. You hear close-knit, you get a vibe. You hear sibling rivalry, you understand that dynamic instantly.
Okay, this next part is really interesting how grammar ties into all this. It's not just the words, but the tenses we use.
Right. The source really highlights this connection between language and time when talking relationships, especially the present perfect tense.
So things like, I've known her for 10 years.
Exactly. Or we've been friends since high school. That have been or have known connects the past to the present.
It signifies that the relationship started back then, but it's still ongoing. It carries through.
Precisely. It implies duration, continuation. It's not just over and done with.
Which contrasts with the past simple, right? Like, we met in 2019.
Yep. Or they broke up last year. Those are specific, completed events in the past. Done. Finished.
Makes sense. And the present continuous, how does that fit in?
Well, for things happening right now or temporary situations, like we're not talking right now.
Okay, so that implies it's a current situation, maybe temporary, maybe not, but it's now.
Right. Or I'm going to know someone new. That suggests an ongoing process, a relationship developing at this moment.
Wow, yeah. The tense choice packs in a lot of information about the status and timeline.
It really does. It's subtle but powerful.
So to bring this together, the source gives a little conversation example.
Yeah, a mini dialogue. It goes, person A, are you still seeing Emily? Person B, no, we broke up last month. It just wasn't working out.
Okay. Classic past simple there, broke up, and a reason, wasn't working out.
Then A says, sorry to hear that. Are you okay?
Showing concern, that emotional aspect.
And B replies, yeah, I'm fine. We're still on good terms.
Ah, on good terms. That's another really useful phrase, isn't it? Describes the post-breakup situation.
Exactly. It suggests things ended relatively amicably. No major drama or bad feelings.
So that little exchange uses the grammar, the vocabulary, and even touches on the emotional side. It feels very natural.
It shows how these elements weave together in just, normal everyday chat about relationships.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit now. The source also mentions cultural differences. This feels important.
Very important. Because how relationships are expressed and understood isn't universal. The norms vary.
Like how openly people show affection in public.
Yeah, that's a big one mentioned. Some cultures are much more reserved than others, and that can influence the language used too.
How so?
Well, if public displays are common, you might have more specific words for them. If it's more private, the language might be more indirect.
Interesting. The source also points out the tendency in many English-speaking countries for young adults to become independent from family quite early.
Right. That idea of leaving home, setting up on your own, that can definitely shape conversations about family roles and expectations. There might be more emphasis on, say, individual achievement versus collective family identity, relatively speaking.
And it highlights core values in English-speaking relationship contexts, like personal boundaries.
Personal boundaries, trust, and open communication. These are often presented as really key ingredients for healthy relationships.
Whether romantic or friendships, or even at work sometimes.
Absolutely. You hear those themes, boundaries, trust, communication pop up all the time in advice columns, therapy discussions, even just friends talking about relationship problems.
And for listeners wanting to see this in action, the source had a good tip. Watch English TV shows or movies.
Yeah, like Friends or The Office or Modern Family, shows like that.
Because you absorb so much of the natural rhythm, the vocabulary, the unspoken rules even.
Definitely. They often reflect, even if in a heightened way, how people actually talk about relationships. The ups and downs, the jokes, the arguments. It's great listening practice.
So wrapping this up then, we've journeyed through the types of relationships, from family to acquaintances.
We've looked at a whole toolkit of vocabulary and phrases for romance, friendship, family.
We saw how grammar, especially verb tenses like the present perfect and past simple, helps us place relationships in time.
And we touched on those crucial cultural nuances, how things like independence or openness can vary and affect the language.
So understanding all this hopefully gives you, the listener, a much better handle on how relationships are talked about in English.
It's more than just memorizing words. It's about getting the feel, the context, the underlying ideas.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. How much does the specific language we use actually shape how we think about our relationships?
That's a deep question. Does having words like close-knit or on good terms subtly guide our expectations or our experiences of those connections?
Something to ponder, perhaps. How would you describe your own key relationships using some of this English vocabulary? It might offer a fresh perspective.